Welcome, everyone, to the Executive Compass. This is where we get insights from B2B founders. We'll dive into their story, how they got started, their challenges and opportunities, and how they're shaping their business for the future. For those of you who are watching, I am Amisha Srimankar, founder of Vectra Growth Partners, and today's guest is Travonnie Mackey, founder of Impact Work. Hey, Travonnie, thank you so much for joining. I'm so excited to talk to you today and learn everything about you and your wonderful company.
Well, thank you for having me. Looking forward to chatting with you.
Excellent. So, for whoever's watching, do you mind doing a brief introduction, please?
Sure. I'm Travonnie. I use she, her pronouns. I live right outside of Nashville, co founder at Impact Work. Started my career in education, really focused on this idea that kids shouldn't get a different experience based on where they live. So I loved doing that work, but very quickly realized that there's some business stuff that schools are still working on, and found myself pulling my business background into education. Fast forward, moved into the nonprofit world in an HR capacity, thinking about how to train and develop managers, and then decided I want to do this systemically. I want to build on this. I want to make sure that when managers are doing what they're supposed to do, it is replicated across the organization. And I think there are a lot of opportunities to make sure people feel great about their work every day. Too often we decide that work is supposed to be miserable. And so when, imagine you come home, your family, and you're talking about your day and you're like, oh, I had a rough day. Work is just so hard right now. People say the same thing. They say, that's how work is, right? And actually, I believe pretty fundamentally that that doesn't need to be true. So founded Impact Work on this idea that work shouldn't suck. There's some really solvable stuff we can be doing differently. That's me in a
Amazing. I
nutshell.
love that. I can't, there's so much to unpack there. So, when someone asks you, what is impact and what do you do there? How do you
Yeah,
explain it in a sentence or two from your perspective as a co
sure.
founder?
Yeah. I usually lean into we are an HR consulting firm that also does training and executive coaching. And I start there because it's a part of our mission to sustain HR leaders. People who run talent functions turn over because they are bearing the brunt of the issues they are trying to fix. So there's no one in the organization looking out for their sustainability, their engagement, their fatigue. That's us. That's where impact comes in. Make sure that talent person is really supported. I think a lot of companies don't have sufficient staffing in the talent work. And so they need help. They're doing their best. They're doing a fantastic job. So I say we're an HR consulting firm that also does manager training and executive coaching.
Amazing. And what does it mean to have better leaders and managers, and what impact can they have in their organizations?
Yeah, brilliant. I love that question. We talk about this thing called the brilliance bias, where independent contributors become managers because they are brilliant. And we see it over and over again. They are experts in what they do, they are really good at their job. And we say, oh my gosh, can you be a manager? And they're like, oh, wow, you see me, thank you. But at no point do we actually pause and consider, what does this mean, right? Like, yes, it means I'm elevating and I'm being recognized, but what does it mean about my day to day responsibilities and what I need to be good at? And so, what I think people struggle to do in the management role is shift away from being the executor of the work to the mobilizer of the work. And that is a completely different skill set. In our framework, we say it's three things. Managers need to be great at leaving people cared for, successful, and developed. And that requires them to do their work differently than, hey, do what I did.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
So tell me, when do companies engage impact work to
Hmm.
come in and start working with the managers and the new
Yeah.
leaders? Say someone got promoted. At what
Yep.
point is the intervention happening, uh,
Yeah.
you know, for this
Good question.
facilitation to take place?
Yeah, good question. I think this maybe lends towards the developing the business and scaling conversation. It was really important for us to have a diverse suite of products. If you are niche, you end up meeting your market demand, and then when the market shifts, there's nothing for people to buy from you. So there are multiple entry points into our work, and we are listening in our sales conversations to figure out which one makes sense for this client. So some clients come to us and their entry point is training. They say, We've set aside PD funding money. We are trying to find a facilitator of this PD that our managers need. What do you offer and which ones do you recommend for us? And so I would say the bulk of our clients come into the work that way, where they're thinking, these managers are awesome, but they need help. What training can we give? We also run into spaces where managers have had training and it's not actually affecting the way people lead. And in those cases, executive coaching makes a ton of sense, where I know the frameworks already, but I need help processing them. I need help applying them. I need some reflection space on how did I get here and why am I here, even if I'm doing a really good job. And so then we will funnel people towards executive coaching. And then the places where consulting systems make a lot of sense is where they have trained managers or their leaders all have coaches already, but there's still a consistency issue. There are misaligned philosophies on things like performance management or compensation, where some leaders want to pay whatever the market says for the best candidate. And other leaders are saying, wait, we need to use our money to give raises to our people who have been here. And they don't actually have a shared policy. And so each leader is kind of running their own mini talent strategy. There is no clarity on what the organization can offer to its workforce. And so we do consulting work that is taking a step beyond the manager, because the manager, once they're skilled and once they're reflecting, they carry their share. But the system allows the company to say, it doesn't matter which manager you get, you're going to have a great experience here. And that's often what's missing for our clients. So if we can tell they've invested in training and coaching already and they're hitting issues that seem to keep coming up, you need system design. So that's where we would funnel them. Hoping I answered your question. Steer me if you want me to pull differently.
No, I think you kind of have answered my question. So it seems to me that the bulk of maybe the more challenging part, and maybe that's how I see it, is more of the consulting, because you're not just engaging with the manager, you are affecting even policy changes within the organization, and your work touches more than just the manager and their role. It touches their teams and the system at large. Is that accurate to say?
Yeah, 100%. I think that if the people just need training and tools, then that's enough for a lot of companies. But for several, it's more so that we haven't ever talked about the way we do work, right? And so our role in consulting is to pull that stuff out and figure out where people have very different opinions about how it should get done. And then we create an alignment. And that's where the policies come in. My favorite thing about consulting work is we see our role there as restoring trust in the organization. I don't just believe in my manager. My manager's awesome, but I also believe in this company. I believe in where it's going and why it's operating this way, the strategy I'm bought into. I know I'm going to be taken care of in performance management and compensation. So I trust this place. And what I think we found is, at default, people don't trust their workplaces. They assume, they assume the company is actually not looking out for me. I see it on, TikTok all the time. I'm watching some management videos and people in the comments are quick to say, nobody's going to take care of you there. This is a myth, right? They're jaded by the state of work because more often than not, they see organizations making decisions for the organization and not for the people who comprise it. And so our work is to kind of solve that disconnect. I think what we find is the leaders that we're partnering with, they really do care about their staff. They stay up at night stressing about how to make sure they get paid and get raises, but that is not translating. The workforce doesn't feel cared for.
Right.
And so there's a missing policy, a missing system, or a misaligned philosophy that consulting can solve.
How long does a typical consulting engagement?
Yeah. How does it take? I think 6 months is pretty normal, especially if we are involved in the change management work. We offer our clients a range. Some of our clients just want a retainer. They need a thought partner. They need some templates. They need a new way of thinking about things. And then they take the work and drive it. And so those can go faster, especially if they have capacity to build policy on their own. But the engagements where we need to get to know your team, we need them to trust us as the people who are going to make recommendations for you. those need to take at least 6 months. So we can do a sufficient listening phase. When we design, we can pull your team into the design components. So you have some people in the organization who can say, I know how they thought about this. They
Hmm.
actually did consider those things that you're worried about, and this is where they landed. And so the change management work to get a new policy likely takes 6 months. And then after that, the implementation work can take a year or two, where yeah, because what often happens is, again, the brilliance bias of those fantastic independent contributor managers. You've now handed them a system that they don't understand.
That's correct.
I immediately no longer feel great at my job. I've got to
Yeah.
learn this new thing. I'm very busy. I care about my team, but I don't have time to like operate differently. And so it
Right.
can take a year to give people some space to say, okay, let me think about how this applies to my team and how I would have different conversations.
Interesting. Wow, this is fascinating. I'd love to know a little bit more about your clients. I mean,
Sure.
do you work with a specific industry where this work is really maybe just valued and you can see it kind of being executed and picked up fast? Typical
Yeah.
industry? Is it a size? Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, I believe that every industry, every size organization needs this work. What we found so far is nonprofits are very willing to invest in it. They, even with tiny budgets, are looking for places to be more valuable to their workforce. And my hunch as to why that happens is we're working with organizations who are social impact focused. They have an external mission that is very people centered, and that's what their people have bought into. This
Mhm.
idea that I work someplace that takes care of people. That's
Mm.
awesome. And then they look up and they go, wait, do y'all take care of me? I'm doing all of this work for this external audience that I agree is important, but
Sure.
I'm burning out, right? And so those nonprofit leaders are quick to say, we can't let our team not feel good about this because we need them to go do that mission driven work. However, I don't think this work is siloed to the nonprofit industry. I also think corporations and larger organizations are more likely to have internal staff. And so they've got capacity to build out these systems and tools. They're less likely to need a consultant.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think every industry at every size could use this. My smaller clients, I do have some clients with under 25 staff. They are most likely to take advantage of our retainers. They need the thought partnership. They need the resources, the templates, and the case studies. Like they like to hear what are other orgs doing so we know we're competitive. My larger clients need the change management work. They are more likely to have staff who no longer believe in the company. They're jaded. Something happened that nobody apologized for. And so I think their entry points are different, but I don't think that there's a size parameter on this. And I don't think there's a sector component either.
Right. What about small, medium businesses or even, say, startups where things can change so rapidly, right? Like when they go through
Yeah.
funding phases. Do you think the kind of environment you are in, does that
Mm,
also influence leadership? I would reckon, and I could be completely wrong, I don't have that experience or,
hmm
front row seat. Nonprofit organizations may be a little more slower pace possibly
mm,
than versus
mm.
a busy startup which is got its round of funding or it's a more of an entrepreneurship led company. I mean, do you see a difference in those environments in your experience? Have you?
Yeah, I do think people are more likely to put their nose to the ground and build the business and then look up, 5 or 10 years in and say, we never built people policies.
Yeah.
Like, we actually never stopped to think about how do we assess performance here? We've just been all hands in, all hands on deck, everybody doing the work of the business. So I think we are less likely to support a startup organization. That said, as a startup ourselves, we staffed with this in mind. My business partner and I kind of split the focus of the organization where she's driving the internal lens of do our people feel cared for, successful, and developed? And I'm driving the external lens where our clients are getting the same thing our staff are getting. And so that alignment, I think most organizations in startup phases skip because of capacity. And so there's benefits and trade-offs to that. I would say for us, we need more capacity on the client-facing side because we have invested so much on the internal side. And that's a choice we made, and I don't regret it. It just means we're busy. We're
Yeah,
busy and we're ready to build out other aspects of our team.
yeah. No, I reckon. My next question is more like I want to kind of ask maybe, and you've probably seen it. Do you think organizations, companies led by women as leaders are different from men and how they perceive leadership and how to take care of teams? Because women,
Mm.
I guess, we are kind of nurturing and caring in nature. And I don't know if that translates in the workplace that we want to protect our team and make sure they're taken care of. Do you see that? Are there differences between male and female leaders in organizations?
That's a really good question. I think I've seen some recent research that says because of that stereotypically empathetic component to gender, women run better companies. I have seen that research, and I have seen some anecdotes that would say it is not that black and white. I actually just hopped off with a male organizational leader earlier today, and we were discussing that he leads with his heart. He's like, where
Mhm.
I have struggled in the business is to balance the empathy and the impact of my work. So I'm not letting people run me into the ground. And I think that's the tension that both leaders feel. They might start on one side where I'm really worried about the financial sustainability of the organization, and I push people to hit results so that I can take care of them. And others lean into the care of the people, but then their business is not impactful enough to avoid the ebbs and flows of the economy. And they hate hitting layoffs because they really do care. So I think I haven't seen a gender dynamic, and I agree that there are some socially acceptable components for women to be nurturing. And I've seen women who don't naturally show up as nurturers being negatively stereotyped against, right? If you're a woman and you are not soft, people actually expect more of you. And I've seen those women say, like, well, nobody's asking this man to be gentle, right? So I think
Very true.
it's the expectations of the workforce that feel different, where we don't always expect that softness from our male leaders.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, you're right. We don't. And when we get it, we're surprised and pleasantly surprised, right? It's a nice thing.
Yeah. Yeah. It mirrors I hope to not offend anyone in this, but it mirrors the dynamic I see where we talk about, there's a content provider I follow. She talks about her husband being such a good dad, and the rhetoric around, like, oh my gosh, like you took your kids to the park, you're such a good dad.
Yeah, I
And
know.
it's like, yeah, women do that all the time and nobody notices, nobody bats an eye. And so I
Exactly.
think the societal influence of the stereotypes we have for one another just affect our expectations. That said, I think there are a lot of male leaders who are very nurturing, and their people really appreciate that about them.
Yeah, no, that's good to hear. I
Yeah.
like hearing that, and I like that we're bucking the stereotypes. And, it's better for the teams, right? It's better for the people who
Hmm.
work there, right? So they can get all aspects of a leader's personality, so to speak.
Yeah.
I'd love to know from, you that for people who are watching this and from the work that you've done, what is the one way that you coach, consult your clients to make their teams feel maybe more seen and supported? Like one of the ways that
Mm.
has come up in your work that, it's a pattern or it's one of a, I don't know if it's a quick fix is the right way to do it, but
Yeah, yeah,
maybe a low hanging fruit. Like, hey, in the first 30
yeah.
days, this is what you can do to make your team feel more seen and, heard.
Yeah, that's brilliant. I have a couple of things that popped up for me, but the easiest one is to reflect on your listening strategy. We run a session called inclusive decision making, and I'm pulling that up for clients all the time. The thing we see them do is swing on this pendulum between excessive voice, where we are asking people what they think about our decisions all the time, and then exclusive voice, where we never ask people. And so the back and forth from that leaves people feeling like you don't actually care what I think. You don't care if I disagree with you about your strategy. And so what we want is to be in the middle because both sides are problematic. If we're on the exclusive voice, there's this us them dynamic that comes up where staff feel like, okay, they don't care about us. And it's like, wait, we're all in this together. But because they aren't ever included in decision making, or their voices don't seem to be reflected in the decisions, you are now a different entity, right? And so we don't want to be on that lens where we never ask people proactively what they think about our decision. And so I encourage the leaders to sit and think, 6 months from now, what am I going to be worried about? Okay, let me go talk to people about that. Okay, I've looked ahead. I'm going to be making some decisions about this and this. What do you think? Helpful. I'll keep that in mind. And so then a year later, when they see that decision implemented, they're like, yeah, you actually did check in with me about that before you got there. And then on the other end of that, where people struggle with excessive voice and they think it's a good thing that they ask their staff all the time, what should we do about this? And what should we do about this? But what it actually comes across as is you don't know what you're doing. You have no clue what we need. And I hear, sometimes I hear clients say, we've done 50 surveys and nothing changes. People don't actually know how to evolve the business to match our request. So stop asking me, right? I don't think you know what you're doing. And me giving you insight is just exhausting. And so you can't be on that end of the spectrum either.
True.
You need to find some places where this is my call. I'm on the hook for it. I need to assess the risk and I need to communicate a really clear decision where it's like, I don't want y'all to worry about this because here's all the stuff I think about when I make these decisions. So I think to answer your question, the headline is take a look at your listening strategy and where you are swinging too far on the pendulum, where like we left everyone out and we made a big change, or we keep asking people and we haven't demonstrated a sense of competency that allows them to trust us.
Yeah, no, well said. I like that. There's a balance there. And reflecting is the key word, right? You reflect what's working and what isn't, what your individual listening strategy is. I want to shift focus to the company and, how you've been able to grow it to the size that you have. Impact is still young and it's ambitious. And from where you sit, what's been the most important early decisions you and your co-founder have made about what to say yes to and what to say no to?
Yeah, brilliant. I think before we ever took a client, we got really clear on our theory of action. And that doesn't necessarily mean which services will we offer. We've moved around in what we've decided to sell, but we were really clear on the problem that we were trying to solve. And I think you hear leaders give that advice. Our problem to solve is people loving their job. And we are only going to do work that contributes to that. Here's an example where we've actually evolved our thinking about our services that comes to mind. We were working with a client on building workplace trust, inclusion, shifting how the team navigates decision making together. And one thing that came up for them is that they needed some adjustments to their strategic plan. And they asked us, do you do strategic planning? Can you help us with this? We looked at our business plan and we're like, we don't want to do strategic planning. I don't know if this is work we care about. I don't know if we should spend our resources learning how to deliver this or training a team on strategic planning. It felt a little bit distant from what we think our HR talent person is going to hold. But what we uncovered is it is actually a root cause issue that you try to roll out performance management without a strategic plan, and then you have high-performing staff and an underperforming organization. So the staff are like, I got really good reviews, where's my raise? The organization didn't actually make more money. And so in order for us to deliver performance management and compensation policies that people really trust and get behind, we needed to help organizations create a better through line between their strategy and what carry. And so it's a manager competency that is really critical for the work. And we decided this is work we do. And it becomes less about just the manager or just the HR person, but the partnership between HR, leadership, and managers that allows people to love their work. And so I think really clear on the problem to solve and the kind of stuff we care about, but flexible on what we sell and how we sell it and how we package it. That has been helpful for our growth.
I see. So what was a no before kind of maybe then ventured on to a yes? Is what you're saying. One of the examples.
And then there are some asks that are still a no, right? That like this actually doesn't match. I'm processing our framework in my head. I'm so
Yeah.
visual. But there are three things that we always need to be able to see in our work. We need to be building a system, we need to be deepening competency, or we need to be shifting people's leadership orientations. If we're not doing one of those things, it's not for us.
I like that. I like that decision boils down to your framework through the filter of the
Hmm.
framework, what makes sense
Yeah.
and what doesn't. It's so well put because otherwise,
Thank
there's
you.
so much distraction out there, right? Like, oh, we can say
Yeah.
yes to this service and we can say yes to this engagement. And
Yep.
it's never stopping because yes, entrepreneur brain, right? We kind of sometimes
Yeah.
have that squirrel brain, like, oh, why don't I say yes to everything? So yeah,
Right.
I like that you have that, discipline and a
Hmm.
framework to use it to make your decisions. How does it work out with your co-founder? Is she on board with the way you think? I mean, is this a joint thing that you guys
Yeah.
developed a framework to create this
Together.
process?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, good question. I think that's the magic of Impact. She and I have been friends for over a decade, and we say we've been building Impact just as long. It's one of those friendships that emerged in the workplace. We had shared manager questions, and we started to get in a room and put our heads together as to how to solve those. I think in frameworks. And so we built
Clearly.
our first, yeah, this is just how my brain works. The pattern recognition is my thing. But we got into a room for the first time and started processing a competency model. She was thinking about how to develop her staff, and we didn't even work at the same company at the time. But we were
Interesting.
processing, yeah, just as friends, like, girl, I want to be a great manager. Here's the thing I see my people need. They get so frustrated when
Mhm.
they're denied a promotion opportunity. And I want to be able to explain why. I want them to see this trajectory. So we built our first competency model and have decided ever since, like, you're my person when I need to think about leadership. And so when it became time to start Impact, it was an easy merge. It was an easy combination. I think she does such a job leaving people feeling seen and cared for and heard. And then I bring a system that allows us to do it consistently. And so our business made sense. We were a little torn on whether or not on the way we should split our work because she's also great at the client facing side. I'm also great at the internal side. Even though we have our strengths, it was kind of hard to decide like, no, you do that part. Because if we can focus, we can really maximize, and it gives us an opportunity to leverage each other. So I need her brain for stuff, and she needs mine, versus we can both do everything and we run ourselves ragged.
Yeah, no, makes sense. I'd love to know, looking forward over the next 6 months, this entire year, even, what are the
Yeah,
biggest opportunities impact that you're most excited about, and what are the new
yeah,
types of maybe programs
yep.
or industries or deeper partnerships with existing clients that you're looking forward to?
Yeah, good question. We're doing really cool cohort work across organizations right now. I'm really excited about that and the way we can provide like membership organizations some insight into all the needs talent related. I think there are lots of orgs who create programming for companies, but they don't actually know what are the gaps. And so I like the work where we're looking across organizations to find some consistent themes in the data. I can see us producing additional reports. We wrote a white paper last year to help people understand the progression of performance management design. If you're just starting out, we've got some guidance on the easy, low hanging fruit and the bigger picture. Here's how you have a more robust system that you can make lots of decisions from. In terms of growing our team, we are going to be building out the client services components. So there'll be more faces. I think our clients love our founding team, but we want them to love the Impact way and not the humans they've met so far. And so our current priority is how do we scale and hold on to culture? Because that is the danger of adding lots of faces. We don't want to feel any shifts in the brand, but there are so many displaced talent leaders who are so burnt out from their work. And we see ourselves as a really great next step or a landing space for them to do work they care about in community. And so we want to be bigger to create a community for all of the people who love this work. So I see us growing our team. I think we are exploring places where we should be touching technology. We don't see ourselves as a tech firm. When we first started, we were a little bit on the fence about that, because when you build systems, sometimes that includes platforms. You're trying to figure out, do we want to be an HRIS provider? And I think we're thinking yes. And that means entering a very saturated market of platforms for employee insights and performance management. What I think makes us different is our system is simple and practical. And I think a lot of tech providers don't have consulting background.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're hoping that when clients leave our consulting offerings or our learning and development offerings, the platform just backs up what they've learned. And so I see us building out some additional technological tools. We have done some experimenting, but there's definitely room for us to grow in the tech component to the consulting work.
Amazing. And Travonnie, this has been such a good conversation. I think I can going on, but I would like to leave the listeners who are watching this take away one mindset shift from this conversation about how they lead people. And I know you shared so many things, but if there's one mindset shift other than listening, what would you want that to be?
I love that question. I would say it's either an accountability or ownership orientation. And what I mean by that is put yourself on the hook for the talent experience. When you decide I'm accountable to people loving work here, you do some stuff differently that you weren't planning to do. We've all kind of gotten used to this idea that most people think work is miserable. Everybody goes to work to get a check. Nobody actually really cares if they have a good experience at work. I just fundamentally believe that's not true. I just don't know that there are enough of us who feel on the hook for staff experience to the point that you would exit somebody who's given up on the company. And it sounds like saying, like, hey, we didn't take good care of you, and it seems like you don't believe in us anymore. Is that how you feel? And give them a space to say, yeah, that is how I feel. And so then you apologize and say, man, I'm not successful if people come into this company and are miserable. So how do I help you? How do I fix it? Or how do I help you find your next thing? Because you just deserve to be at a workplace where people take care of you. I would love to see a workforce where that is the norm and not an exception, where leaders just feel on the hook for people's experience.
Okay, amazing. This is such a good conversation. Thank you so much for your time, your insights, and your valuable lessons that you've learned in the field, and thank you for sharing all of those with us. And if people want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, go to empact.work, and we spell it with an E. The E represents the empathy required to actually get to impact. So empact.work. You can also follow us on LinkedIn, and I just released a book. You can kind of see here in the top right-hand corner. It's called Retain Me If You Can, and it's available on Amazon. So I'd love to get that in as many hands as possible.
I will drop all those links on our conversation below, and people can click on them and connect with you.
Wonderful. Would love to talk with y'all.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Take care.